There will be no video recording. Good evening and welcome to Community Conversation sponsored by the Dallas Examiner. My name is Christy Thomas and I am the coordinator for today's event. The Dallas Examiner is presenting a series of community conversations at the African American Museum to provide factual information on critical issues affecting our community from people who can provide direct knowledge on various topics. These community conversations will provide an opportunity to have an open discussion about critical issues within our community. There will also be an opportunity for a call to action to enable the community to ensure that Dallas is strong and a healthy city. Unlike Monday Night Politics, Community Conversation is a discussion designed to provide accurate information from an inside source. There will be no timekeeper for this event. All questions for this event will be placed on a note card and passed to me, and I will read the questions. Like all events sponsored by the Dallas Examiner, we ask that all attendees be courteous to one another and show respect to our guest speakers. Today's event is an opportunity for us to hear from a reliable source, to gather information and to express our viewpoints and ask questions in a controlled environment. It is our prayer that we engage in intelligent dialogue where the outcome benefits the community. Please silence all phones or turn them off, and video recording is not allowed. Community Conversation is being streamed live on Facebook and will be posted on the Dallas Examiner website, so please keep your noise to a minimum. The plan is to present Community Conversation once a month, except October due to the State Fair of Texas. We would like to thank Molly Belt for her continuous contributions to the community, as well as our attendees for their support and interest in their community. Last but not least, special thanks to Dallas Alumni Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, for working the table for today. Thank you again.
Thank you, Christy. And hello, everyone. Hello. This is our first in a consecutive series of community conversation. And we decided to discuss education in our first community conversation. Because as all of you I know are aware, our recent legislature passed several laws that dealt with education that affects the educational programs of our students. And so we are very fortunate tonight to have with us Dr. Elizardi, who is superintendent of Dallas ISD, who can tell us factual information on how these laws affected our public school system here in Dallas. Dr. Elizardi has only been at the ISD, I think, for approximately a year. And so I'm going to ask her to tell you a little bit about herself and also her plans for the district. We all know that we want a healthy city in Dallas. And really, for the city to be healthy, a lot of aspects have to be healthy. One of them is education. And so whether you have students in the ISD, you live in Dallas, or you work in Dallas, and so it's important that we have a healthy city.
Thank you so much, Molly. And thank you for everyone to take time out of your busy schedule to come join us. While I've only been with the district in this role a little over a year, I was certainly part of the team for almost 10 years prior to that, before I was the superintendent in Austin ISD. I think as I look around, a lot of familiar faces, so I think everybody probably knows all they need to know about me right now. So let me start, though, with some good news, because eventually we will have to talk about the legislature. That's a little bit of a joke. So let's talk about first, you're going to be seeing a lot. All of our districts have now received STAR data, and it's going to be an opportunity for us to spend time talking about what our schools, our teachers, our support staff, our principals, what they accomplished, our students, our parents, and our community partners. In most categories, Dallas ISD is now at or above pre-pandemic levels. And it took a little longer in mathematics, as you all may know. The district really rallied back after the pandemic in the reading, language, arts area, and mathematics was an area in which we really needed to make some additional gain. And as you will find out at Thursday's briefing, we're going to be able to provide some numbers specifically around 3 to 8 reading and 3 to 8 math. And in fact, Dallas ISD is positioned very well when we compare ourselves to surrounding districts. And in fact, in some areas, we are now at the state average or even above the state average in many areas. So those, what we used to call achievement gaps, I prefer to call opportunity gaps. Because when we call them achievement gaps, we're saying the issue must be with the students. And it isn't about what the students have or don't have. It's about what we must make sure we fill in terms of gaps. They're opportunity gaps. And a real quick little example to some of that is, you know, as I was being reared, my father was a teacher, my mother was a secretary, and my mother worked an extra job. But the extra job was not to keep the lights on. And that's different from the children in many instances that we serve. Many instances, the extra job is to make sure that lights stay on and that food is on the table. In my case, my mother's extra job was to pay for things that other children had opportunities to do that I would not have, like studying ballet, or my sister taking piano or guitar. Those are things that now Dallas ISD, under the direction of our Board of Trustees, knows that those opportunities have to be part of our entire educational program. And so we partner with organizations and nonprofits like Big Thought and many others to ensure that not just the academics during the day, but that those opportunities that our students need for background knowledge are the things that we can continue to provide support for. Now, I'm certainly not saying that we're ready to take a victory lap. But when you must take on a journey of 1,000 miles, it begins one step at a time. And we are moving in the right direction. We are closing the gap. There is much to be done. And we should celebrate our teachers, our students, and our parents and our principals for the work that they have done, because this is their work. Now, there are some changes that we're addressing to make sure that we can accelerate our student outcomes. I've mentioned a few of those, and those are in extracurricular activities. Our board continues to ask us about data regarding how many students participate in things outside of the school day, whether that's sports, whether that's band, whether that's chess club, esports. There's been an expansion in that area, and I want to just continue to re-emphasize that it's the connection so that those academics have real meaning for our students. Teachers and parents have been telling us a long time that we've been testing way too much. We take a practice test before they take the real test, and then we have a boot camp for the practice test before we take the real test. And then there's a boot camp before we take the real test. So that would be like my son, when he was growing up, I want to be taller, Mom, I want to be taller. He was a pretty good football player, but at 5'7", he probably wasn't going to play Division I football. But he kept asking me that he needed to be taller. So, I did what most of us parents, we line them up on the wall in your house and you draw a little line. So we would do that about once a month, and kept saying, I want to be taller. So I'm like, okay, I'll measure you once a day. Or I'll measure you twice a day. Guess what happened to his height no matter how much time I measured? It didn't change. Well, that's similar to in some ways what we were doing with assessment. We were assessing and assessing without even utilizing the information. And our principals and our teachers and our parents have been telling us a long time, there is too much testing. And it's kind of contrary to the thought, right? If we're spending time testing, then when are they allowed to teach? Which is where the real difference is made. Testing in and of itself has taught a single student nothing except that they are smart or that they're not. Those are not enforcements that we want. We don't want a student to not be prepared, take an assessment, and confirm that they didn't know it. That does not contribute to good student outcomes. So our team evaluated. I was amazed. I thought there was going to be a lot of time that we had been spending on testing. There are a couple of grade levels where that practice of the test to the practice of the boot camp equated to 18 days of instruction. Not 18 hours, not 18 minutes, 18 days that we were utilizing for taking practice tests or the tests before the test. That doesn't include the actual required time that the state of Texas, under the law, requires students to take the state assessment. So we have essentially added 18 instructional days to the calendar without adding an additional day to teachers who have told us they're tired when we do extended years. So we really need to make sure that we're supporting that. And so again, marking William on the wall in and of itself was not going to make him taller any more than me getting on the scale to measure my weight, and I want to lose weight. It's not how many times I get on the scale. It's what do I do with the information about the scale. So there will be no more, and I've been very excited about what I've seen. We do not have worksheets and test prep going on in our classrooms in Dallas ISD. We've returned the classroom to the teachers so that they are the ones who know our students the best. Now, we did provide a uniform guided curriculum because we also know that within Dallas ISD, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 22 to 26 intra-district mobility of students. And so if we're using completely different curricula at School A, and we know that 1 out of every 4 of our students are going to end up at a School B, and we're using a totally different curricula, we have now made that challenge of schooling more difficult. So while we have a uniformity in our curriculum, it is not formulaic. And I have been pleased to see what's in our classrooms, where our teachers are taking their experience and working with other new teachers and PLCs as they really engage in the curriculum. So no more teaching to the test. No more shutting down the school so we could do STAR Camp. And in fact, now we are actually seeing students start on grade level, and then a teacher can either advance the student to a level above that grade level, or they can scaffold to ensure that the student can get to that grade level. And the other thing we did is we've had teachers writing lesson plans since I can remember. And then so I wrote them as a teacher. I won't even tell you what year that was because dinosaurs were roaming the earth. Principal, I was going to take time to evaluate the lesson plans that teachers wrote for me. I can tell you that the only time I actually read those lesson plans as a principal was in my first year as a principal. And what did I do with the reviewing of the lesson plans? I either wrote a check or a check plus and put it back in their box. Did that change instruction? No. I don't even know what needed to be changed because I was looking at words on a paper. So we were taking hours of teachers' time to write lesson plans and hours of principals' time to evaluate lesson plans when there is a lesson plan in the curriculum. So it already exists. That guideline is there. So our teachers can simply use that as a guide and make modifications as they see necessary. So we're not going away from accountability. We know that the state requires that assessment. And we are going to continue to do well on that and any other assessment over time, because it's the real teaching and learning on grade level and challenging that our students can do and will do as long as we continue to support that. If the way we had been doing it with worksheets had worked, because let me tell you, I was the queen of test prep when I was a principal. I really thought that was the way to get it done. But then I saw other school districts that serve a different population of students, and I didn't see them doing that. I saw them using real reading and writing. I walked into a 6th grade classroom the other day, I think it was 6th grade, and the students had their little paperback book, The Outsiders. They had it all dog-eared, and they were marking and annotating. It's that type of engaged reading and writing that our students learn so much from, not just from a technical aspect, but just from, again, that background knowledge and being able to see other children's and other people's experiences. So again, I don't call them achievement gaps, because our students can do it. It's the opportunities and the background knowledge, and if we know that that exists, then it's our job to make sure that we close that gap. Now, as for the legislative session specifically, this is what I think is going to be very interesting. Again, we're not ready to take a victory lap, but our achievement in academics and in student groups, our teachers and parents and students and principals and support staff are moving that performance in an upward trajectory. So we're going to be celebrating STAR performance, state assessment performance, and then the state of Texas will then issue letter grades. A few years back, you may recall that the state of Texas went through to an A through F rating. Well, it's not going to really make sense to you, because I can explain it, but I can't make it make sense, that our student scores in academics are improving, but the ratings of the schools will be declining. So I'm going to say that again. It is so troublesome that our scores are actually improving, but the campus letter grades are declining. They are going down. So there's been a change. The commissioner calls it a refresh under the law. I would say it's more of an overhaul, because this is almost a totally new engine. This is not an oil change. And so what's occurring is, you may have heard, there are several districts in the area that are considering a lawsuit, and in fact, some have already joined a lawsuit, and this includes districts that you might not have thought of. This is including suburban school districts, like a Frisco, or a Plano, or a Garland. So this is affecting all school districts, because again, while scores are going up, the new evaluation system will actually make school grades go down. That would be the same as playing a game of basketball or football, thinking these are the ways in which we score points. 3 points for the 3-point line, 2 points, 1 point for free throws, and then after the game is played, we go, oh no, that's not the way we're going to do it. And we're like, but the game's over. Yeah, but we're going to do it differently. So the 3-point line is now only worth 2 points. So that changes the outcome when you change the rules after the game has been played. And that's essentially what the legislature has done. Now, the other thing the legislature did not do was they did not invest in public education. So since 2019, we've had inflation of somewhere about, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 14 to 16%. And yet, the state of Texas has not increased the basic allotment for funding for public schools since 2019. But our custodians, our counselors, our food service, our teachers, everyone's rent, fuel, electricity bill is all going up. and not one penny went into public educational funding. Now, there's supposed to be a public session, a special session in October, but that's dependent upon whether the impeachment trial is concluded by that time. So we're anticipating it. They say public school funding will be part of the discussion, but we've yet to see whether that will come to fruition. And if it does, as a reminder, we now have to contend with private school subsidies. Now, sometimes they use other names, but I'm going to call it what it is. It's a private school subsidy. They like to call them educational savings accounts or vouchers. It's private school subsidies. It's taking yours and my tax money to fund a private school. Now, if we funded public schools the way they should be funded, there probably wouldn't be even a conversation. Now, if you study the states where private school subsidies have been implemented, less than 10% of the students that are in the schools were new. In other words, they ended up being funding students that were already in the private schools. Because if you take Dallas as an example, the average of a private school, Green Hill, Hockaday, St. Mark's, the average is somewhere around $20,000. The private school subsidy would be $8,000. So if I put myself as a child in that arena, my parents could not have come up with $12,000 to make up that gap. In addition, that doesn't include any of the meal plan, uniforms, transportation, because private schools don't provide transportation at all. So it's an entirely different situation. The last area from the legislature, Molly, that I want to talk about is House Bill 3, which is requiring armed individuals at every single school, period. Regardless of size, regardless of students served, regardless of location. And so what that is doing to a district like Dallas ISD, and they provided $15,000 per school to get that done. Well, the typical licensed peace officer in Dallas ISD with salary and benefits is somewhere around $80,000. Am I off from about $80,000? And so $15,000 for an $80,000 position means that the delta is $65,000 that the district will have to make up. And where are we making it up from? Because remember, we haven't gotten any new money since 2019. Now, our teachers and our support staff all got raises because our board is not going to let that stay in the way of meeting the needs of our team members. And so they went into a deficit budget. And while we are certainly, I would say, in a more liberal area, I want you to know that our board is also very fiscally conservative. They want to ensure that tax dollars are being utilized wisely. And so they do not take it lightly that we had to go into a $185 million deficit into fund balance in order to pay raises for all of our team members. And so that's the dedication this board has. Now, the challenge with that is you can't use your savings account to make your mortgage payments because ultimately the savings account is gone. And so that's not something we're going to be able to keep doing over and over and over again. And then the other challenge is, where is the workforce for, even if we come up with the money, where's the workforce? The city of Dallas, I think, budgets somewhere in the neighborhood of, and I see former councilman there, I hope I'm not going to be wrong here, former Councilman Thomas, but somewhere around 3,200 officers, and there's only 3,100 employed. That means there's 100 vacancies that have been funded that they can't fill. Well, we'd be competing for the same resource. So think about this as an unintended consequence. we advertise that we have a position and an officer says, you know what? I'm going to go work and almost make the same money, and I'm going to be assigned one school. And we remove an officer, if you will, off of a neighborhood beat to go sit and serve at a school. That's an unintended consequence where we've taken resources out of our entire community in order to serve an individual school. Now, our board also ensures that safety is at the forefront. And before any of this law has passed, our board had already invested over $210 per student in lights, locks, and law enforcement. So whether those are gates or keyless entries or cameras or additional security measures or up-to-date scanning so that folks can go into buildings and we know who's in a building, along with managing the cameras, ensuring lights are functioning in our parking lots, particularly at night. So that was already an investment at over $200 per student. So what the state did do is they went from $9.72 per student to a whopping $10 per student. So we got an additional 28 cents. I don't know what you can do with 28 cents. I don't know if a phone is even, can you make a call for 25 cents these days? No. So there's a lot of required, mandated legislation, and I think it's going to be really important that we see what happens in the October session. We've got great folks and great things happening, early college, high schools, P-TECs. Is there work to continue to be done? 100%, absolutely. And I also want to ensure that the team of teachers, principals, parents, and support staff are fully aware that we want to celebrate their successes, because it's their work in the classroom that has got us to where we are now. And I think we're positioned well, Molly, to be able to continue forward with seeing more academic success.
Let me ask you this now. Was the district able to employ an officer at every campus?
Great question. So knowing that we would not have the manpower to do that, the agency did allow for large districts like Dallas to present to their board and then have the board approve an alternate plan. So we have officers that we took from patrol, and they are now in a rotation amongst several schools. So every school sees an officer, but not for the entire day until we fulfill that. That was a great question. I failed to mention that. Thanks.
Also, Senate House Bill 3 mentioned providing mental health education for staff who interact with students. Have you all done anything?
Well, and again, this board has been very futuristic in their thinking. We already had an expansion of mental health services in our district for both adults as well as students. And so we have more licensed individuals, clinicians, this term I was looking for, that serve our students and who can also serve our employees, our team members. But none of that was funded. And again, there's a lot of mention in the law of things, but these are unfunded or partially funded mandates at the very least.
There's a bill that was passed that says change the parents can now put their students back a grade. What is it, the 8th grade and lower? Before it was 3rd grade. So how are you inform the parents that they can do this, or is it just if they indicate that they want to do this?
Yeah, those are some of those laws that I think we know sometimes anecdotally somebody has an experience and then they go to the legislature and then the legislature passes something that was really a response to a handful of people. So the research is extremely clear that remediating and failing students is not a successful outcome. Now, passing them on without support is also not a successful outcome. So what we do is we do engage with our parents with regard to any concerns, whether they think the child is ready to move on or not, and then develop, in either case, what we need to ensure is that there's a total support plan that could include some social emotional learning support, that could include some extended day services, just a variety of things based on that individual student. But we haven't seen a lot of parents that really want to engage in that, and honestly, that's not an area that we would necessarily want them to do. We would want to do that on a case-by-case basis.
What about the libraries in schools? What's the status of the libraries?
So our libraries are fully open. Well, our libraries are fully open. We did do a review as required, and any books that we felt were not appropriate, certainly there was a list, and we went through that list, and those books have been deselected from a particular grade if it was in an inappropriate book. There's an entire committee of people and library. That's why it is important to have a librarian, by the way. It's really important to have librarians, because our librarians really do know what's in their libraries, and they're very helpful and supportive with regard to how we should manage any of the books that we have and whether they need to be checked. And we're going to continue to be very transparent with any books as children check them out. If parents are concerned, we have an entire process in place.
I know that the district had the Black Studies curriculum, and they also had the Hispanic Studies. What is the status of those curriculums now?
Both of those still exist. They are in high schools, and they both exist. Those are still up and running, and I believe those are full courses. I mean, they are in demand. The students do enjoy those courses, learning about history, whether it's African American or Latino Hispanic culture.
Now, I don't know I forgot who produced the film, but I know that there is a Hispanic film, Crystal City, 1969. Is that being shown in schools?
We have not. I believe that you're referencing the horrific event that happened here.
They have a film.
Yes, and we are working to put together a particular possibility for students could opt in to choose to see that with parent permission.
You do have students interested in the
Absolutely.
Black Studies.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are we ready to give the audience? And this is intended to give the audience an opportunity to participate, and you don't have to ask a question. You can make a statement also. Thank you so much.
Our first question is going to address employment. One of the audience members would like to know, why does it take so long for a potential employee to get hired?
We'll go ahead and take that question, but initially, we said we wanted to concentrate on educational programs and the effect of the educational programs, if there's any effect on legislative issues, and to get an update. Do you want to answer that?
Sure. I would really need more specific information because we have actually had a real acceleration from when people apply to being able to be hired, and so I think that given different circumstances, I've seen a lot of situations where the hiring was expedited. We're going to continue to work on that, but happy to visit. I know that our human capital management team would be happy to visit with someone's specific concern so that we could get to that response.
The next question comes directly from a conversation you just spoke about security. Will you elaborate on school security, and will those officers have real guns?
I wouldn't want to ask any of our officers that, because I can assure you that they all have real guns. Those are licensed peace officers. That's an extremely high bar in which the officers have to meet, yes. They would all have that, and there are certain amounts of the security that we do not put out in public, because that would expose any sorts of situations that might make us vulnerable. So without any more specificity, I really couldn't give an exact answer.
The next question comes directly from an attendee wanting to know, will a female coach for Carter High School be hired? What programs are general education teachers given to support special education teachers?
So there's an entire body of requirements for general education classroom teachers, depending on which types of students that they're servicing. And so it would be dependent specifically on whether they're serving students that are identified in their handicapping condition in a variety of different ways. But that's a requirement under the state law, and so all of our teachers, every single general ed teacher actually receives training specifically in treating and serving students that are in special needs, specifically because special education students are not special education students. They're general ed students who are also special education. It's a both and, it's not an either or. And anytime we talk about students in special education, we always want to ensure we're servicing them on what's called the LRE, which is the least restrictive environment, which means anytime students can be in a general education classroom with their peers, we have seen, as the research shows, and it is a state requirement, that students do much better if they can be in a classroom with their peers. So we do a lot of training specifically so that teachers are well versed and prepared to serve that population of students.
The next question also asks, do you happen to know the percentage of African American students in special education?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
This question is asking if there will be new buses allocated for the new budget.
So actually we have several new buses that are on order that we're waiting for, because strictly with the, our team applied for a grant in which we received electric buses. And I'm trying to remember what the total number of buses will be on the first round. Is it 20? So we'll be receiving 20 in the first round. The challenge with all of our bus orders is the fact that getting buses is not kind of like the way we buy a car. You go to a lot and you pick it out. You have to order these, and they are only a couple of manufacturers, and so it takes quite a bit of time. But there has been, the answer to the question is there absolutely has been money allocated to replace the older buses as quickly as we can.
The next question is speaking in regards to students leaving the district. What is the district doing to deter this exit process?
That was African American students, not just students.
Start answering the questions, please. You know the answer.
So we do exits with students that are leaving the district, and with regard to any of the students that are leaving our schools, part of the biggest challenge is to understand what it is that we're not providing that their parents or guardians feel that they need from us. And we need to then be able to pivot and address those so that they would choose to remain with us. We are learning more about some of the things that our parents are requesting, and we're going to continue to make those adjustments moving forward.
The next question is asking why community leaders are not on the principal select committee.
You know, there's so many aspects of education that we could discuss. And so we narrowed this because we wanted this discussion to be about the educational programs for students. And we did not want this to be about human resources, issues like that. And so, you know, a lot of times when you have meetings like this, there's just, you know, everybody, like I say, they're all over the room mentioning everything. And when you leave, you don't really have any real information about a specific
But we
thing.
need to find out exactly.
So we wanted,
Hold on.
Push your mouth.
I'm sorry. At the beginning of this form, I said this is a controlled environment. If you have a question, you put it on a card, and then if that question is a part of what we're doing, the questions that we're asking, we will ask that question. If it's not a question that we're going to ask, we're not going to ask it, sir. We want this to be, like I said, an intelligent dialogue. Intelligent dialogue. I'm sorry. We want this to be intelligent dialogue. Again, if this is not to your liking, sir, you may leave.
And then too, you got people in front of you who don't want to hear all that.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Again, we will be very respectful. That is the way we handle business here. Thank you so much for your time.
well, I was just trying to explain. And at the end of this discussion, we are going to, I believe, Honorable Casey Thomas is going to come up and talk to you about things that individuals can do in terms of action steps. Dr. Elizardi has talked about a lot of things that are going on in the district, and she's implied that there may be some things that we can do to help. And the whole purpose of this is to find out factually what the situation is, and also what is it that we can do to solve the situation. What can we do to make it better?
Thank you. The next question is, how has the legislative decision impacted students receiving special education services?
So one of the things that, I don't know that the legislature at the state level did, but certainly at the federal level, is the federal government did find that the Texas Education Agency was out of compliance in requiring special education quotas. And so there was this unwritten expectation in Texas that schools were penalized if we over-identified students in special education. Now, over-identification in special education is absolutely an area that we should be concerned with, and in particular, African American children are absolutely over-identified with regard to special education. However, to simply have a blanket, you can only have this many percentage of students in there, affected the type of services that students needed to receive. So that lifted the ability of more students getting services that needed services. That being said, the best way for us to ensure that students' needs are met is to have the best first type of instruction at the classroom level, that first tier 1 instruction, which is what is occurring now, so that students get the very best of their education in a general setting classroom, and then we provide additional services. We also, however, the state did do something that actually will make it more difficult for students to get their evaluations completed, and that is that any student that is now identified as possibly being dyslexic will now have to have a full individual evaluation, Well, in the state of Texas, there are not enough diagnosticians right now to test all of the students in the state of Texas and meet all of the deadlines that are required. And so now adding a new layer of students that will have to be assessed with what's called an FIE, a full individual evaluation, is actually going to backlog a system. So our district will be looking to contract services because we don't have enough diagnosticians to evaluate everyone. So they may have thought they were solving a problem, but in fact, if they had talked to the actual diagnosticians and teachers that teach special ed, they probably would have been informed of a different process that would have been helpful. So special education is an area that we need to continue to work on, and I want our parents to continue to let us know and to advocate at each of our schools how we can better serve them.
This question is coming from Facebook. Is there a list of deselected books that parents may view?
If it's deselected, it's not available.
Does Dallas Independent School District provide a robotics or an aviation program?
We provide both robotics and aviation. And in fact, our career institutes just had new simulators that are the same type of simulators that American Airlines utilizes. I was just over at one of those. We have a total of 3 with a 4th one coming online so that all areas of our school district will be able to have access to these very important careers that are high demand, high job, high wage jobs. They include everything from anything in aviation to robotics to mechatronics to medical health professions. And we have the latest in equipment at all of these locations, and we would be happy to get with people and take them on a tour of the career institutes. It's really an innovative way in which many of our students can enter the job force if they would choose to do that instead of attending college. And robotics is now, I think, such a large area. I think we've utilized the American Airlines area a couple of times to feature all of the students that are actually working in the robotics area. Our teachers have done an amazing job.
Our last question is in regards to construction at the MLK, Madison, and Lincoln schools. Is there a time limit on when these projects will be completed?
So I'm going to ask our chief of constructions, because I know this may shock everyone, but there are some details I don't all have to memory. And so there is a team. It's called the superintendency for a reason. It's a team of folks, and Chief Brett Alfred can give us an update.
Yeah, currently we're going through the permit review cycle. So that's something we don't have control of. But once we do get the permits, we're anticipating about 12 to 14 months of construction.
Madison.
Not Madison. Madison is currently under construction.
Yes, I know, for a long time.
Yeah, Madison won't be completed until December of 24. We just went to board with a change order.
And just keep in mind that when we keep students in the same location where we're renovating, it automatically extends the time frame because we have to create swing space for students to move into one part of the facility while another part of the facility is being renovated. And then you move students again. And so the process is a little different than when you actually have a completely vacant area that you're either building brand new up or whether you're taking a complete area that's empty and renovating the entire facility. So each of those takes on a different time frame, and then of course the permitting can sometimes delay us quite a bit. We're working on getting that faster. We're working to build a a method with our city so that we can benefit our community by getting those new facilities up as quickly as possible.
We're gonna move toward our call to action. Former Councilman Casey Thomas will come to the podium.
All right, good evening. First, let's give Dr. Alzadeh a round of applause for taking time to be here. As Molly, Ms. Bell said, this is the first of several community conversations going to take place. I'd be remiss as a former elected official not to acknowledge we have several here. If you are an elected official, if you would, please stand. Well, thank you for your service, and then thank you for being here tonight. When Ms. Bell began the conversation about bringing communicated conversations back, one of the things that she discussed was the fact that we know about Monday night politics, and we know people come out to hear the candidates. But Monday night politics is only during election season. We need to have conversations on a more regular basis about issues that are important to our community, and so it's why we're having a community conversation. I thank her. Let's give Ms. Bell a round of applause just for her leading. And so in our discussions, oftentimes people say, well, we had a good discussion, but what came from it? And with the issues that we're dealing with in our city and in our state, we need to have a call to action. And so what we're doing is, as opposed to forming a committee, and the committee has to choose a chair, and we have to figure out what's going to be the priorities, it's real simple. We're just asking anybody who's willing to take action. When we send out, we want you to make sure you sign up. Is the sign-up sheet? Okay. Those of you, absolutely. We have a sign-up sheet for those of you who want to be a part of this call to action. And all it requires you to do is take action when it comes. It may be sending emails to our state legislators. As we know, a special session is about to, in October, is planned. And last I heard, the Lieutenant Governor said that the case should be wrapping up by Thursday. So the session, that trial will be over, and they will be able to have the special session, as was stated, on education. And education, as we're talking about today, is one of the most important issues that's going on in our community. And so we know our teachers and our educators will be in the classroom instructing students. And I've been told, I don't know if it's true, but one of the reasons it was October was selected was because teachers would be in session and won't be able to go down. But we do have retired educators. We have community leaders. We have others who can. And so one of the call to actions will probably be asking people who can go down and testify. I had opportunity to go down several times during this past session as representing the state NAACP, and on those issues that were important. And the truth of the matter is, and State Board Member Davis can tell you this as well, there are not a lot of people of color that are showing up. And so education, we know. I watched the last State Board meeting, and the commissioner was doing his presentation to the board, and he was going over data. And then the data, it showed by race and ethnicity, students of color and African American students in particular, on the bottom. And so we need to make sure that when the time comes that people show up. And so that's going to be one of the calls to actions. We're going to have conversations about a number of topics. Some are going to be related to what's going on down at City Hall. We're going to need people to show up, to speak up in support of the racial equity plan that was passed, and make sure it's implemented in a way that benefits our community. And so, please, before you leave, take a minute, fill out the form. The fact that you came out on the first night of Monday Night Football, and I'm so glad the Cowboys played Sunday night, not Monday night, or it may have been empty and just us here. But the fact that you showed up this night says that you care about education. It says that you should care about the issues in the community. Let's take the next step. Make sure you sign up Put your information. We just ask for your name, your email address, and if you choose to, your phone number. So when the time comes, we have a way of communicating with you, and it's not asking you to do anything but take action in a way in which it's going to benefit the communities that we support. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Ms. Dunn.
I forgot at the beginning also to acknowledge the CAPs who are volunteering tonight. They're here. For coming out tonight, and do sign up if you can for the call to action. And I want to thank our superintendent for coming out. Thank you very much. And I think we'll be able to put this on Facebook Live.
Well, it's on my site. We got to transfer it to yours.
So we'll be on the Dallas Examiner
It will be on there.
website for people who didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.